Oxford Essays by John Dewey, Context and Thought, and in that essay he identifies the neglect of context as perhaps the philosophical fallacy. One of the implications of this, it seems to me, is that philosophy and anthropology have to be brought much closer together than they traditionally have been. And Dewey, in fact, practiced this. He was in very intimate conversation with folks like Malinowski and Boas. And so we need to contextualize, and that means we need to identify the cultural, historical context in which thought goes on. Now, Dewey, in that essay, also draws a very nice distinction between language in a narrow sense and language in a broader sense. So he says, he poses the question explicitly, is all thought in language? And he answers it by saying, no, if you mean by language, natural languages such as German, French, English, but if you mean by language some mode of symbolization, then indeed all thought is in language. So we need to identify the symbolic, semiotic systems in which thought is being articulated. Now, one of the ways in which this gets a polemical twist is that the contextualism looks like the contextualism sometimes is made to appear that the context is a prison from which one cannot be sprung or from which one cannot escape. And there's a opposition between, say, universalism and contextualism. And my thinking on this is influenced by Peirce perhaps as much as anybody, and it has to do with generalizability as opposed to or distinct from universalizability. To what extent in this context can we generalize beyond where we have arrived? And it seems to me that this is an experimental question. We do not know the limits of generalizability in advance of our attempts to push the boundaries of communication, the boundaries of knowledge farther than we have reached. So the question is a very important question, and it has to do, is a very human dimension, and a very personal question. What are the limits of generalizability? And the answer to that, of course, is we can never know in the abstract, and we can only win it. We can only do it in a concrete historical context.